Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Elmhurst Public Library. My name is Sue. I'm a program assistant here, and we're very happy that you're with us this evening. A couple things to take care of before we do get started. We're using a hybrid format this evening, and so that means we do have attendees both here in person and online. If you are watching from a device, we're using the webinar format, and that means you can see and hear us, but we cannot see or hear you. We're going to have a question and answer segment at the end. So those of you in person, please hold your questions until then. If you are watching us on Zoom, you can go ahead and type your questions into the Q&A or the chat, and we will answer those at the end. And also on Zoom, we've enabled the live transcript option. If you don't wish to see the words at the bottom of your screen, click on the closed captioning button or the button that says more with the 3 dots and then select hide subtitles. In the library, we're using our assisted listening system. They're very easy to use. If you'd like to borrow one, just come see me in the back of the room. Please silence any cell phones or any other devices. And a couple programs to tell you about. Well, also first, I do want to tell you the program is being recorded this evening. And coming up on Thursday, June 16th at 10 a.m., we have a hybrid program from the Genealogy Club, Digging for Clues with Cemetery Research. And then on Tuesday, June 21st at 7 p.m. is another hybrid program. It's Chicago's Candy History with Leslie Goddard. And if anybody in person is interested in any of those programs, we can talk at the end of the program. And if you are viewing online, I'm going to go ahead and put some links into the chat to both of those programs. And so now please help me welcome Dr. Nick Bournazos.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much, Sue. It's an absolute pleasure being here. My name is Dr. Nick Bournazos. You can call me Dr. Nick. And I am passionate about posture. Quick show of hands, who here has ever been told to stop slouching, sit up straight, or stop hunching? Yeah, right here. Yeah. Doesn't matter how old you are, at some point in your life, someone who you know, whether it be a friend or a family member, is going to tell you that you have bad posture. And that's not a good thing or a bad thing. You know, our posture is an outward expression of the structure of our body, but it's also so much more than that. Our posture, it's part of our first impression. What people see in your posture can convey things like confidence, poise. Someone who has good posture might be considered cool or collective or more trustworthy, or someone with bad posture might be considered humble or meek or not confident. So your posture has a lot to do with what someone thinks about you before they ever meet you. Oh, sorry, I'm a wanderer. I do apologize. We talked about this before. I said I would probably go off camera. Thank you very much, Sue. Poor posture is about a lot more than just how you look or the pain that you're experiencing from it. Who here has ever gotten so caught up in a book or sitting down on the couch on the computer that they sit up, like, oh gosh, I'm feeling a little bit stiff in my neck or my low back hurts. It's very easy to get caught up in our day-to-day things, not realizing that the posture that we're putting our bodies in is causing things like pain and discomfort. Sometimes we know. Sometimes we know that the positions that we put ourselves in on a daily basis aren't good for ourselves, but maybe it doesn't hurt, maybe it doesn't cause any discomfort, so we keep doing it. So many people during COVID have been working from home and spending more time on the computer, and we find ourselves in these hunched and slouched positions. Other times it's other technology, like our phones. We're on our phones all day long. The average person will spend over an hour on their phone during the day. For some people, it's much more than that. Our posture is the result of and affects every different structure in our body. It affects our skeletal system, the bones in our body. It affects the muscular system, all of our muscles in our body. And it also affects our organs and the way that our body actually functions. So before we start talking about what good posture is or what bad posture is or how it affects us, it's important to understand what the core of our posture is. And the core of our posture is really our spine, our backbone. And when we look at someone's spine, when we look at it from the front, your spine should be nice and straight. Your shoulders should be even. Your hips should be even. When we look at your spine from the side, you have three nice even curves. And when you have a neutral spinal posture, there's not going to be any additional pressure or stress on any of those structures. You're going to be sitting straight, you're going to be standing straight, and you're going to be laying straight. It's when we start to shift away from that that we start to have problems. And those problems are what end up being symptoms. Symptoms can be things like pain or discomfort, but they can also be abnormal function in our body as well too. First thing that we look at when it comes to our posture is how it affects our body. So today I want to go over how poor posture affects our body, how we can identify it, but then most importantly, what we can do to help to strengthen our posture so that these kind of problems don't occur. So our respiratory system, our lungs, poor posture in your upper back, your thoracic spine can cause a reduction in your lung capacity by up to 30%. Well, how does that happen? Well, that happens when that mid-back, that thoracic spine right there starts to hunch forward. It's what we call a kyphosis. Okay, when you're in that hunching position like that, it does two things. First off, it actually decreases the actual space that our lungs have to breathe. It also affects our ability to expand and contract our rib cage, which can reduce our lung capacity, which can cause things like shortness of breath, just to name a few. Our lungs also work hand in hand with our cardiovascular system. Our heart pumps blood around our body and our lungs oxygenate that blood. So if that lungs aren't working properly, it can affect your cardiovascular health as well too. Cardiovascular health and cardiovascular disease is the result of 25% of deaths in the United States. So your posture has a huge impact on that ability to breathe easily. So by working on your posture, it can help you breathe a little bit more easily. So that's something we're going to be working on for you. It can affect your digestion. Same thing. In fact, poor posture can decrease your peristalsis. That's the ability of your digested food to move around your intestines. If you have bad posture, if you're hunched forward like this, or your hips are tilted, it can actually affect the ability of your body to properly pass food, which can cause things like constipation. So good posture can help your body to digest its food a little bit better. Some things that people don't often think about when they're talking about their posture. Next, your muscular system. We talked about those times when you get caught up in a book or you're on your phone or computer and you get up and you're feeling tight in your shoulders or tight in your back. You feel those knots, right? Who's ever had knots in their back before? Yeah, right here. I try and get my wife to work on them and she tells me, well, you're a chiropractor, you can work on them yourself. I don't. So when we look at your muscular system, poor posture is going to affect those areas. When we are standing up nice and straight, when we're sitting straight, the human head weighs about 12 pounds on average, give or take. For every inch that we hunch forward, for every inch that your head comes forward compared to that nice straight up and down position, it actually makes your head feel like it weighs 10 more pounds. So if you're hunched over like this, your head could weigh 24, 32, 48 more pounds than it actually does. Think about it like this. When you leave the grocery store, you're carrying your groceries out, you have them down to the side like this. You'd never walk out of the grocery store with your groceries out like this because it feels like they weigh more. The same thing goes with your posture in your upper back. When you're hunching forward like that, those muscles are sore, not just because you're in that bad position, but because it's actually working on holding that bowling ball of a head that you have up in that proper position. So keeping good alignment, keeping good posture in your neck is going to help those muscles not to have to work so hard. That's going to help to reduce pain and discomfort. Now, getting to the skeletal system, your muscles help to support your spine. And when your spine and when your body is in poor posture, it actually is going to cause damage and wear and tear to our bodies. We've all heard of arthritis before, right? Some people have it, other people know people who have it. This right here over here is an example of a nice healthy spinal joint. We have a bone right here, a bone right there, and then we got that disc right in the middle. Your discs are your shock absorbers for your spine. Think of them like a piece of rubber. And what they're doing is allowing your body to move in proper alignment, proper motion. And when you have good alignment of your spine, right here we have an example of a neck x-ray. When you have good alignment like that, these joints are nice and happy. Now, what we're seeing in this picture right here, this person has lost that normal alignment to their neck and they're hunching forward like this. And when that happens, it starts to put pressure on those discs. Now, if you have pressure on a disc, you might not even feel it, because interestingly enough is that those discs actually don't have any real nerve supply to them. So you can have a pinched disc for a long, long time, but it might never hurt. So that bad posture, you might not feel any pain or discomfort from. However, all the time it's starting to push down on that. Well, if that's allowed to continue, sometimes that curvature in the neck can start to go the opposite direction. And if that goes on for a long enough period of time, it can start to cause more bulging of that disc. We've heard of a disc herniation or a disc bulge before. Sometimes it can be in the neck, sometimes it can be in the low back. And if you have a bulging on that disc, it can cause that nerve to get pinched. A common term for a pinched nerve is sciatica. You get a pinch on your sciatic nerve in your low back, and you get numbness and tingling going down into your legs and feet. If it's allowed to continue on, then we start to have that arthritis. These are bone spurs right here, that the bone actually starts to grow around that disc area to start to support it, where it doesn't have the support that it should anymore. And then if it's allowed to continue, those bones can actually grow together and fuse. And at that point, then there's no more motion to that. As this degenerative joint disease or arthritis progresses, some people don't feel any pain until they get to this point, and some people get to this point and don't feel any pain or discomfort. But the takeaway is that the better our posture is, the less it's going to cause this kind of wear and tear to occur. So by working on your posture, by working on your ergonomics, it can slow down that progression of arthritis. Arthritis is something that we get as we get older, but it's not something that you have to get at a certain rate. I see people in my office, patients who've been in car accidents who are in their 20s, who already are starting to have arthritis in their necks. I have patients who are in their 60s and 70s who barely have any at all. So while something like arthritis is something that is going to be inevitable in some way, there are things that you can do to stop and slow that progression. Next is your nervous system. I talked about how you can have a pinch on the nerve. Who here has ever had a pinched nerve before in their back? I definitely have. I pinched a nerve one time, and I could barely move my hand over here. If you have a pinched nerve, it can cause pain, it can cause numbness and tingling, it can cause weakness or muscle spasm, but it can also affect how your body functions. Your brain is constantly sending messages down your spinal cord, out through your nerves to every vital organ and cell and tissue in your body. And when we have a pinched nerve, sometimes it can cause pain and discomfort, but other times it can affect how the body functions. You know, we all remember Christopher Reeves, right? Superman, he fell off of a horse, he broke his neck, right? And everyone saw that he was paralyzed as a result of breaking his neck right up here. It was a terrible accident. But what a lot of people didn't realize is that not only was he not able to walk, but he had to have a pacemaker for his heart. He had to have a ventilator for his lungs. He had to have dialysis for his kidneys, because his brain wasn't able to tell his body what to do because of that compression on his spinal cord. He needed systems to help his body to function too. Now that's an extreme case, but you could imagine if you have a pinch in one of these nerves here, it could affect how the rest of your body is functioning. So proper spinal posture helps to allow your body to function the way that it should. So how do we help to make sure that all of these problems I talked about, all this doom and gloom doesn't become a reality? Right now, everyone's looking at me like, oh gosh, doc, that all sounds terrible. You know, we're going to start here with just a quick break. So we're going to take a posture break. So if everyone would like to stand up, we're going to do something called a Brugger's posture break. Okay. So I want you to stand up. You're going to have to open up your arms. So if you need to kind of shift away from everyone. So we're going to stand up. You want to have your feet about shoulder width apart. So you don't want to be too close. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put your chest up and you're going to put your head in a neutral position, which means you're going to be looking straight across the room, looking at my face. Okay, we're going to look at everyone's face. And I want you to turn your palms so they're facing up towards the ceiling. Okay. And then we're going to bring your shoulder blades back. So kind of bring those hands backwards as far as you can go back. And then I want you to tuck your chin down. So tuck your chin down. And then just hold that for a few seconds. What this is doing is that is relieving all that bad posture that you had from being like this. So it's the opposite of being hunched over. So you guys can sit down whenever you like. But this right here, this Brugger's posture relief, is something that you can do while you're doing certain daily activities, when you're sitting on the computer, when you're reading a book. Stop and take this break for a few seconds every 10, 15, 20 minutes to help to relieve that hunching position. So this is something that you can do on a regular basis, whether you're sitting in the car, whether you're sitting at the computer, whether you're sitting at a desk, to help to relieve some of that bad position. Brugger's posture break, very easy. And I do that one all the time. Another way that you can do that one is do the same stuff, but look up like this towards the ceiling. We all tend to hunch and look down. So just that act of bringing everything back and looking upwards is going to help to take a lot of pressure off of your spine. So let's identify some of these bad postures that we get ourselves into. I guarantee you, if I lined every single one of you in this room up, you'd all look a little different in your posture. There's no one right way. There's no one wrong way to have posture. But so over here, we have what would be considered good posture. This young man, he's standing up nice and straight. He's looking straight forward. His shoulders are back. His hips are nice and neutral. Otherwise considered good posture. This one right here, this is very common, the forward head posture. That's that text neck that I was talking about before. When you're hunched over, it can be on your cell phone. It can be in a book. It can be anything that brings you forward, even things like hobbies, like crafting. I have a lot of patients in my office who do like jewelry and things like that. Anything that causes you to be in this position, that's going to cause a lot of stress. If you're in this position for long periods of time, you want to use that posture break to kind of take a break from that bad posture. You have that thoracic kyphosis. I talked about that with the respiratory system. So if you find that you're kind of hunching your back forward like this, that's where bringing that chest out and open like this can help out. You have an anterior pelvic tilt. This young man kind of looks like a chicken walking around. That's a little excessive right there. An anterior pelvic tilt, people tend to tilt their hips forward and kind of push their butt out a little bit like this. That can cause a lot of low back problems. And lastly is something called sway back, where you're actually more just kind of leaning backwards like this. People can have these kind of bad postures for a lot of different reasons, but trying to identify which one that you have is really important on working on trying to fix that. So when you go home tonight, go and stand up and look in the mirror, or ask your friend or significant other, what do you notice? Do I have good posture? Some people might not come out and tell you it. Oh, but it's important to identify these things. Sometimes we think that we're doing all the right things, but we're actually not. This person, they got a nice adjustable desk that goes up and down. They're sitting on one of these exercises balls, but they're still sitting all hunched over in a bad position like this. So you can have all the things, but still not be doing the right thing all the time. So we're going to go over today good sitting posture, as well as good sleeping posture. And those are two of the main postures that we can address, as well as some exercises as well. So good sitting posture. Now, if you go online, you're actually going to find this picture or some variation of this picture online. And this picture, I'm not a graphic artist, so I'm not going to draw my own picture. This picture is only partially right, okay? I'll tell you why. Starting from the bottom, their feet are on the ground. If your feet aren't able to touch the ground while you're sitting at the desk or sitting at the computer or sitting on your chair, put a little box or something like that to support your feet. Knees should be at about 90 degrees and the hips should be about 90 degrees. Everything's looking great. The only difference is right up here. Almost everything that you find online will tell you that the top of your computer monitor should be at eye level when you're sitting on it. Well, those recommendations were made back when computer monitors were about this big. It really hasn't changed since then. Now, computer monitors are the size of the TVs at the time that they made those recommendations. So what I recommend is actually bringing that computer monitor up higher so that the middle of the computer monitor is at eye level. Because if you have a computer monitor that's this big and you're only looking at the top of it, you can be looking down the whole time. So bringing that computer monitor up higher. If you're working off of a laptop, I've got a few tips that we'll get to for that as well too. So whether you're on your computer, on a phone, or even with a book, it's important to bring what you're using up to your eyes. There's a lot of different ways that you can do that, but by bringing things up to your eyes, you tend not to slouch down like that. The next thing when you're on the computer is where your arms and your elbows are. Your elbows should be in at your side. You should have little tiny T-Rex arms while you're working on your computer. And that's important because if your keyboard is here and if your mouse is here, the further that you bring your elbows forward like this, the more you're going to tend to slouch, slump, round your back, and bring your head forward. So if your keyboard's in front of you and your mouse is right here, and everything that you're working on is in this general vicinity as well too, you won't have to think about having good posture. You'll just naturally have it because everything that you're using is in the proper position. So here are a couple examples. We talked about laptops. A lot of people work off of laptops. And unfortunately, laptops are just so difficult because with the keyboard and the monitor just all right there, you're just really slouched down into this position. And this person right here, you can see they're looking down at their screen, they're hunched forward. That's going to cause a lot of stress and strain on your back and on your neck. And really going to cause some discomfort, even just sitting for a short period of time. So what you can do is this. So with the wonders of online shopping, you can jump on Amazon or any of those kind of things and find a stand for your computer. So you get a stand that's going to prop your monitor up as high as you possibly can. You might not be able to get your laptop up at eye level like that, but the higher that you're able to bring that screen, the better. Also, get a keyboard and a mouse that is not connected to your laptop. Because if you're able to bring that keyboard in here, it can be a nice wireless keyboard like one of these, or it can just be a plug-in USB one that you just plug into your laptop. By getting something like that, it's going to help to make that separation between the screen and the keyboard that's going to allow you to keep that good alignment. Now, you don't need to buy fancy things. You can use a stack of books right there or whatever it is that's around your house that can allow you to have that good position and to change those things. Now, if you're going to be on your computer for 5 minutes, that might not be necessary. But if you find yourself on your computer for 15 minutes or more, it's important to try to find a way to make those changes so you're not hunched forward for long periods of time. Sleeping. How many people here wake up from a long night's sleep feeling sore, stiff, or otherwise? I know I do sometimes. Sometimes I sleep very good and I wake up, arms falling asleep, neck is feeling stiff. There's a right way and a wrong way to sleep. And it's difficult because everyone's body is a little bit different. So these guidelines are things I hope you can take home and try to make a few minor adjustments to see how things can go. So first off, who here is a stomach sleeper? Yeah, I am. That's my natural position. I like to be in that position. Sleeping on your stomach really is not good for your spine. Yeah. You fall asleep, but you wake up paying for it, right? Well, Sleeping on your stomach is bad because unless you have a hole in your mattress, I'm still working on patenting that. I'll figure that out at some point. Unless you have a hole in your mattress, you have to turn your head to the side like this. That's not going to be good for your neck. The other thing is that laying on your stomach will often cause you to kind of arch your back down, especially if you have an older mattress that might not be as firm. So that can cause you to wake up with back pain and neck pain. And sometimes if you lay in that position for a long enough period of time, you wake up with your arm falling asleep. That's because you're actually pinching that nerve in your neck as well. So sleeping on your back. So sleeping on your back is best. Now that can be hard for a lot of people to do. A lot of people don't like sleeping on your back. So when you're sleeping on your back, you want to make sure that your neck is as neutral as possible. So what that means is you want to make sure you don't have a pillow that's too thin, but you also want to make sure you don't have a pillow that's too thick. I know, right? Very difficult. That's why being able to return everything that you buy is a nice little perk. There's one way that you can try to get around that. And my recommendation for proper pillow placement while you're sleeping on your back is whether you have a thick pillow or a thin pillow, lay so that your shoulders are actually on the front of your pillow. If you lay with your shoulders on the front of your pillow and your head towards the back of your pillow, then what's going to happen is your shoulders and your head are going to be in the same position, the same level. And because of that, your head's not going to be up or down. So if you move that pillow down a little bit, have your shoulders on your pillow, it can help to support your head and keep that neutral position of your spine. Now, there are a lot of ergonomic pillows out there and all sorts of different things. Find what's best for you. It's important. I get asked it all the time. What's the best pillow out there? And my answer is whatever one works best for you. But when you're laying on your back, try to keep your neck in that neutral position. When you're laying on the side, the same thing goes. You want to make sure your pillow isn't too thin so your head isn't tilting down. You want to make sure your pillow isn't too thick so that your neck is tilted up. One thing that I find a lot of people do when they're sleeping on their side, if their pillow is too thin, they'll tend to put their arm underneath their pillow. Who sleeps like that with their arm underneath their pillow like that? Anyone? Okay. Oh, all the way in the back, Sue. A lot of times people will do that because their pillow isn't thick enough. So they'll put their arm underneath. Well, sleeping with your arm up like that is not great for your neck or shoulder. And you're going to wake up. Sue's like, oh, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. So it's important to find a pillow that's going to have that. So if you sleep on your side, you really probably need a very thick pillow because that pillow needs to go the entire different distance between your shoulder and your head, even when that bowling ball of a head that we talked about is putting pressure down on it. So if you're a side sleeper, maybe a foam pillow that's a little bit more supportive is going to be beneficial. And maybe if you're going pillow shopping, just go and put that pillow up to the side of your head and be like, okay, does that cover that distance right there? And if it doesn't, then you probably need one that's thicker. You can use multiple pillows, but that can be difficult because a lot of times they'll slip and slide around. So I don't necessarily recommend that. When you're sleeping on your back, like I mentioned, sleeping with your shoulders on the front of your pillow and your head towards the back is going to help to keep that neutral position and allow you to use a pillow that's almost any size. So that's going to be easy. I also recommend putting a pillow underneath of your knees when you're sleeping on your back. And that does two very important things. First off, it takes pressure off of your lower back. So if you're laying on your back and you feel like your back is achy when your legs are straight, if you put a pillow underneath with a little bit of bend, it's going to take a lot of pressure off your spine. It's also going to do something very important. It's going to help to create a physical barrier to you rolling over away from that position. Because when I fall asleep like this, I almost always end up waking up on my stomach. That pillow helps me to stop from rolling. And it's hard to find a good sleeping position. We've gotten used to the position that we've been in for years and years and years. So when you start to try and make these changes, don't feel disheartened. It can take months and years for you to kind of retrain your sleeping patterns. So these aren't things that change overnight. So that's a good example of a good back sleeping position. Side sleeping. In addition to having this person either has just one arm or they're putting their pillow underneath their arm underneath their pillow, which I said is not good. But once again, I'm not a graphic artist, so I just got to grab the best picture that I can find online. So I do apologize about that. But one thing that you do want to do when you're sleeping on your side is put a pillow between your knees. Putting a pillow in between your knees helps to keep your hips in a neutral position. If you don't put a pillow between your knees, even if you keep one leg stacked on top of the other, you tend to kind of tilt your hips, or you're going to have one leg over the other and rotating your hips like that. That can cause low back issues, just like laying on your stomach can cause issues in your neck. So keeping a pillow between your knees doesn't need to be a large pillow, but just a small one to keep your legs in a neutral position is going to be very beneficial. And then once again, trying to keep your neck in that nice even position. What I normally recommend for your arms is just keep them in front of you. That's why sometimes a body pillow can be very beneficial. Body pillows are great because you can put it between your knees and you can put your arms around it, and it helps to keep that nice even sideline position without any twisting or bending or tilting as well. So it's definitely something to look into. So now that we know good sitting posture, we understand proper standing posture as well as sleeping posture, what can we do to help to strengthen our postures? I gave you guys a little handout here, and I hope you can use that as a little supplement to what we went over. I'm not going to go over everything on there. There's some additional kind of helpful posture tips and tricks and things like that on there outside of what I'm talking about today. So please make sure to take a look at that. So strengthening exercises. We talk about core strength, right? And core strength isn't just about getting, a beach body or a six pack or something like that. It's about trying to strengthen those muscles that support your spine. As a chiropractor, I see people in all different stages of health, activity, and things like that. And what I often find in my office is that when I have someone come into my office who's more physically active, exercising, whether it be yoga or Pilates or any different type of physical activity, I tend to find that when I look at their x-rays actually look worse than how they're feeling. And that's not a knock on physical activity. It's that they actually feel better than what I would normally expect someone to look like given those x-rays. And the reason for that is that even though they may have bone spurs or arthritis, they have good core strength. And it actually helps to support your spine. So having core strength supports your posture, takes pressure off of those joints, takes pressure off of those nerves, and is going to help you to feel better and avoid some of those injuries. So core strengthening. Now, there's variations on every different kind of core strengthening activity. At Quartz Plus, they do a great chair yoga class that I have a lot of patients who do, very popular. This right here is the plank. If anyone's ever done a plank before, it's probably one of the best core exercises. And you can do it many different ways. Traditional planks, you'll lay with your elbows down and your toes down, trying to keep your body as straight as a plank. And this is a great kind of core exercise for one reason, and that's you're not twisting or bending or slouching. A lot of times when you do exercises, when you're moving, it actually can cause issues. So this is an isometric exercise. You use your muscles to stay in the same position. A variation on that plank exercise is using your knees. So you're going to be on your knees instead of your feet. It's going to take pressure off of those. Or you can even use a wall. You can use a wall to do that plank exercise. You can just put your arms on the wall, lean like this, try and keep your body in a straight position. So you can do a plank exercise in various different positions to try to stabilize that core musculature. So the plank is something you can look up online, and there's a lot of different variations, and it's a wonderful exercise for your core, whether you're able to do it the traditional way or any of the other alternate ways as well. Next is an exercise called the bird dog exercise. And what this exercise is a variation of being on your hands and knees. So you're going to go on your hands and knees, and you can start with simple motions of just bringing one arm up off the ground. The point of this exercise is trying to keep your core in a neutral position. So you're on all fours, and you're going to try and lift up each arm without leaning or tilting. It's called the bird dog. So you bring up one arm, you hold that arm in a position for a few seconds, bring it down, next arm, and you can use the legs as well, kicking the legs out, the whole time trying to keep that core in the same position without tilting or leaning. A more advanced way to do the bird dog exercise is doing the opposite arm and leg at the same time. So you start with one arm or one leg, and then you can move up to the both at the same time. Once again, keeping good core strength. Next is a stretch and an exercise called the cat camel stretch. I don't know if anyone's ever seen this before, done any yoga exercises. This is a wonderful stretch. I do it every morning, and I do it before I even get out of bed. I do it on the bed. Sometimes my wife looks at me when she's still sleeping, wonders what I'm doing, but she knows by now. With this stretch, you're going to be on your hands and knees, and I like to do it on the bed so you don't have to get down on the floor and do it, because I don't have a yoga mat laying next to my bed. And what you do is you arch your back down and up, alternating in each direction. And what this does is it just starts to loosen all of those bones and all of those joints in your spine, so you can just start to get some motion. And I love doing it at the beginning of the day, because when you wake up in the morning, you're feeling tight, you're feeling sore, and you just want to try to start getting things moving. This can be done while you're sitting as well, too. You don't need to be standing to do this exercise. This exercise can easily be done while you're sitting, just by trying not to sit on the microphone. I don't think that's a problem you guys are going to have. Sitting at the edge of your seat and just out like that and back like this. So you can try and do these exercises in all different positions, but the cat camel exercise is a very good stretch and exercise that you can do to help to not only get better flexibility in your spine, but also help to strengthen it as well too. The more that you move those muscles, even without heavy resistance, the stronger that they're going to be. Next is a neck exercise. We tend to jut our chins out like this. So this simple exercise is just using your fingers just to push your chin back as far as you can like this. It may feel a little odd, but by pushing your chin back like this, it actually starts to stretch some of those muscles here. And then what you can even do is, once you tend to do that, you can then push your chin out against your fingers and resist it. That's that isometric exercise. You can do the same thing to strengthen your neck muscles by putting your hand on one side of your head and pushing your head into your hand. Same thing, front and back. Keep your neck in perfect posture. Put your hand on one side and just push against it. It's going to activate all those muscles. It's going to strengthen them, but you're not going to be moving your neck, which is going to help to make an easier exercise, but at the same time strengthening all these muscles here. Next is a great stretch for your chest and for your upper back. When we are sitting hunched over, not only does our head come forward and our spine kind of hunched like that, but that position causes these muscles in our chest to become contracted like that. So not only do we sit hunched like this, but then when we stand up, instead of standing back up and bringing our shoulders back up nicely, we tend to stay kind of hunched over like this as well too. So this is called a door angel exercise. And what you're going to do is you're going to go, and I don't have a door that's within camera range, but you're going to put your arms on both sides of that door, and then you're just going to go to walk through. So your chest is coming forward, your arms are going back like that. You're going to feel a nice stretch through the front of your chest. And when you're doing that, you kind of change position of your arms. You can start with your arms parallel to the ground like this, and you can bring them down like this, and you can bring them up, and you're going to feel different stretches in your shoulders. This is also great if you have someone with like a rotator cuff issue or a frozen shoulder. It starts to get some nice mobility into those shoulders as well too. So an easy stretch or exercise that you can do without any additional weights or anything like that, that can really just be good to do on a daily basis. Last thing, pictures of me adjusting people. If you're experiencing pain or discomfort, stretches and exercises are important. Everything that I told you guys to do today, if it causes any pain or discomfort, stop doing it right away. Everyone's at different stages. And if you are experiencing pain doing those things, that's the kind of thing I help people out with. So at this point, I'd like to open up the room for any questions. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask in front of everyone, I'd be happy to answer those. If you have questions for me that you'd rather have in private, I'll be sticking around for a little bit and I can answer those questions as well too. My office is on North York in Elmhurst. If any of you are interested in chiropractic treatment, I do offer complimentary consultation so I can look over your case, see if it's something I can help out with. And I do work with all major insurance companies as well too. So it's been an absolute pleasure being here. I hope you guys were able to gain something from this, some things that you can go and take home tonight and work on, whether it be sleeping, sitting, or some nice stretches that you can wake up to tomorrow morning with. So thank you very much. First question.
Oh, hold on just one second. If we need to use the mic just so that people online can hear us as well. They can benefit from.
Hi, I have a sleep number bed, and
Okay.
so they recommended for my lower back to, lift it up in the at my head
Okay.
and then at my feet, so
Okay.
that my lower back is lowered onto
Okay.
the bed. Do you think that would be an okay thing to do?
Okay, so I don't have as much experience with those, but so they're recommending. So you're kind of inclined a little bit, so you're pretty much pivoting at your waist like this, and then your legs are up a little bit as well too.
And yeah, in my head.
So that can be a beneficial position for low back issues. The reason for that is that by being in that position, it often is going to take some of the muscular pull off of those areas. If you are waking up in some discomfort, even being in that position, it may be because you do have a little bit of an inflamed disc, because being in that bent position can sometimes put pressure on the discs in the lower lumbar spine. Everyone's different, so it's hard for me to say specifically, but being with the legs up, it's not completely dissimilar from putting that pillow underneath of your knees. So most people would probably benefit from it, but once again, everyone's a little bit different. So if it's working for you, I'd probably recommend to continue it. But if it's continuing to give you problems, it may be something that you want to change or address otherwise. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Yeah, very good.
If anybody else has a question, just raise your hand. I'll walk around with the mic. And if anybody has any questions online, go ahead and type them in. Any questions?
I think what's so hard about having good posture is you have to remember to do things. And, when you're just walking or you're looking at, you don't remember to do those things.
Yeah.
And I mean, are there actual exercises that can help you stand up straighter without having to think about it? Or
So there are. So, the goal of a lot of the things that I try and implement, like being on the computer and things like that, is changing the position of things so you don't have to think about that. So if you start to identify times when you're looking down, whether it be on your phone or something like that, trying to identify, okay, that activity that I'm doing is one that's bad for me, so I need to change that. Now, you mentioned walking around, and one thing that you can do when you're walking around, and you'll see people doing this sometimes, is putting your arms behind your back like this. Putting your arms behind your back brings your shoulders backwards like this, and you tend to stand a little bit more upright. So if you find yourself kind of looking down at the ground when you're walking around or something like that, putting the arms back like this is not only a good stretch, kind of like that doorway stretch that I mentioned, but it's a good way to kind of retrain that posture. So that might be something that you can try. Yeah. But then also when you do those kind of stretches and exercises by retraining your body's posture, doing those posture breaks and things like that, you start to find that those positions tend to feel good. So you start to naturally do them a little bit more as well.
So I have a question from online. What posture shows the most confidence?
It's funny because years ago when I did this talk, I actually commented about, I believe it's Amy Cuddy. She did a TED talk years ago about posture or power postures or power poses. And it was actually one of the most popular TED Talk, I think the second most popular TED Talk ever. And she's this amazing psychologist, and she did this research into how these power poses can affect your body's hormones, and it can affect your body's cortisol levels and things like that. Some of the hormones in your body. So a confident pose or a power pose would be one where your shoulders are back and your head is up. A lot of it has to do with that neck and shoulder position. When you tend to slouch your shoulders forward and bring your head forward, it kind of probably conveys a little bit more of that meek, posture, where when you talk to someone like this, looking them in the eyes, you're going to have a little bit more confidence and a little bit more of that power pose as well too. Hope that answers their question.
Hi, I'm wondering, is it okay to cross your feet, at the
So
ankles, or to, put one leg over the other, or,
So
across like this
crossing
when
your
you're-
feet, like you showed, just kind of sitting there with your feet crossed like that, isn't going to really cause that much issue. Anytime that you sit in a certain posture with a preference to one side or another, it's good to try and alternate back and forth between those two. Sitting cross-legged can cause some imbalances in your pelvic and low back alignment and posture. Most people will tend to cross one leg over the other. I know, for example, when I sit, I always cross my left leg over my right leg. Well, when I go and cross my right leg over my left leg, I find that my right hip is tighter than my left hip. And that's, at least in part, that tightness that I experience is because I've inadvertently stretched my left hip more than my right hip because of the way that I'm crossing my legs. So it is important not to favor one side more than the other. So you can cross your legs or your ankles while you're sitting, but it's important to try to be conscious of alternating from side to side when you do that. Same thing goes, for example, for women's purses. People tend to carry the purse on one side over and over again. And whether you have a heavy purse or a light purse, you may tend to tilt a shoulder down or maybe even tilt the shoulder up to hold it. And if you do that every day for years and years and years, something that only weighs a few pounds, or in some cases many pounds, can cause you to start to alter like that. So in that particular instance, I do recommend more like a crossbody purse. A crossbody purse worn on either side is going to distribute the weight a little bit more down the middle of the spine. So if you can start to identify things that make you favor one side more than the other, whether it be sitting, computer, purse, cross leg, if you identify that, then it's important to try to alternate. That's a great question. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
I use a walker part of the time.
Okay.
And I know I'm watching other people and I'm doing it myself. I don't need to lean over to use the walker, but I do.
Yeah.
I've seen lately in magazines some walkers that are, you stand up straight in and you have places to put your arms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you think that's better than the?
I do. And for the same exact reason that you just said, you don't need to be leaning on your walker. You just use it for that extra support and confidence, just in case something happens. But because you have it there, you tend to just naturally go down on it. So those kind of more upright walkers, I've seen them as well too, are going to be helpful, because same thing, if you're in that hunch position for long periods of time, it's going to affect that posture. So the more that you're able to be upright, the better it's going to be. So I would recommend something like that. Yes.
In school also, they have desks that move up and down so that the children can stand part of the time and
Yeah.
sit part of the time.
Standing desks are something that have become much more popular over the last 5 years.
Mhm.
And standing desks are good because sitting puts more pressure on your low back than standing does. However, if you have a standing desk, you can still have the same kind of problems with the hunching over your computer. Like for example, this right here, while this would be a standing desk for me, something that someone might use as a workstation, with the monitor where it is, I would end up being in a hunched over position like this all day long, which standing and hunching is going to cause extra pressure on your low back as well too. So if you have a standing desk or a sitting desk, it's important to keep those things like your monitor and your keyboard in those positions so that you help to keep a neutral position.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, let me just double check the computer. No, I think last call. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Sue.
you. Have a
Thank
good
you
night,
so much for the
everybody.
great questions. Take care.